kill. Triple kill. Quadra kill. Penta kill. Welcome.
Hello and welcome to OzLoL Podcast, episode 56. Not 56, 53. I'm getting ahead of myself. My name's Colossus. I'm the host of the show, and today we are going to be talking, in fact, answering. It's a mailbag episode. We're going to be answering your questions. We've got two great questions from via email, which is ozlolpodcast@gmail.com. We've got a couple of big questions to talk about, and to help me with that is my trusty offsider, Claro Calero.
Good to be here. We can always use that episode 56 audio for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's it. Just time warp it.
So a two-man episode tonight.
Two-man episode, yes. Our good friend Ralph Vespucci Panabianco, he's over in Italy at the moment, so doing something, lazing around. We know it's actually coming from a deep well of love.
Absolutely.
So, yes. And with that, let's talk a little bit about some scene news. So... we've got some results this week. We're heading towards the Oceanic Finals, which will be in November. We have got the Challenger qualifiers held on the weekend, and spoiler alert, Your Soul Shall Chuffer won that game versus, I think it was Team Unlimited, going under the name of Attack Chimera Ants or something like that. It was ACA.
That's the one.
That's the one. So they are now joining. Direwolves, Chiefs, Legacy in going to EB Expo, Armageddon, and or PAX. They're going to be in the top 8. We've got 4 more spots open. We've got spots for from the Cybergamer League, as well as from the Road to Glory through Oceanic Gaming. So there's still a bit more to come before that all happens. Of course, PAX is the top 4, and that is in early November. So still got a while to go, but yes, it should be very good. And of course, this is coming.
We've got a few names locked in, which is important.
Indeed,
So,
indeed.
At the moment, was it Legacy, the Chiefs, which is like the old Team Immunity that became Exodus, for those who've missed the last 2 weeks worth of episodes.
Yep.
Dire Wolves, which is regularly featuring Rippy in the jungle, who was very known amongst the community. And Your Soul Shall Chuffer winning the Challenger Series. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with that, that is the top 8 ranked 5s teams competed in a tournament over the weekend, and YSSC came out on top. They looked quite strong with Sir B. Carrion being a big playmaker for them, coming from the jungle. It was quite entertaining. Immunity did not make it through the Challenger Series because they were disqualified in the first round due to a DDoS attack. So, and we actually had it confirmed. It's not just hyperbole. That was actually a DDoS attack. So, very unfortunate. So, as you all know, I am the manager for Team Immunity, and whilst I am not speaking on Immunity's behalf here, I do have a vested interest in it. So, I'm going to talk about it. And there's only 2 of us, so Ralph can't tell me to shut up. We still have a chance at getting through in Cybergamer. Basically, it comes down to Friday night's game. It's a game going to be played between Avant-Garde and Plantronics NV, 7:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. I'm not sure if it's being streamed or not. I'm just getting that checked. No, I'm not sure. But if it is, it's going to be one of the most important matches of the CGPL finals, because it's basically going to decide who are the 2 teams that do qualify for the round of 8, because the winner and the runner-up of the Cybergamer tournament are the ones that get to go to round of 8. So that will be decided this coming Friday. So that's the game to watch this week, people.
Yep. So, of course, there is the Road to Glory, which doesn't really work out for most of the major teams, because they're essentially like for university teams or teams that go to specific LAN locations. So, which most of the major teams can't really do that, or they're not at uni. So, unfortunately, for one team out of NV, Avant-Garde, and Immunity, one of them is going to have to miss out, which is going to be disappointing for whoever that happens to be.
Yeah. Have we heard anything about the West Australian university team and how well they're doing? I haven't heard a thing.
I don't think there's I don't think there is I'm trying to think if there was a EWA team. I thought it was just there was a LAN cafe team going from WA. Maybe there is EWA.
The frag zone. They've got
They actually had the qualifier. I didn't actually watch it, which is probably bad of me because I probably should have, but I was kind of busy. So I'll find that out later. I'll try and track it down.
Yes, you must.
I must.
This is all on you because I haven't got the time at the moment.
All right, I think that's probably it for the show news or the scene news. Well, let's get into the questions. So we've got a question from Amazing Abaddon, and also from our good friend Victor Pradley. And the first question is from Amazing Abaddon. He says that he's listening to our chat about communications and what people are responsive to. He says he gets decent results asking questions of my teammates. Now, he says, for example, he says, okay, who do we focus on the team fight? I know the answer is probably the ADC or mid laner, but I find it's easier to buy into if you let someone else make the call. So I guess the question is, what are our thoughts on who you focus in a team fight?
Well, the answer is Vayne. Whether or not
especially if you're TSM
in the game, that's right. No, it changes depending on the team fight and depending on the team composition. I would say definitely the squishiest person who's in the most vulnerable position. So that could be a support, that could be a mid laner, that could be an AD carry. The AD carry is generally the primary target because they're going to be doing the most sustained damage throughout the entire fight if they're left unchecked. They're just going to be Infinity Edge critting your face off even the strongest person in your team. So if you've got the opportunity to kill that person, by all means take it. But a good ADC or a good marksman will not put themselves in that position. They will be staying at the back, behind the Renekton, behind the Thresh, trying to safely auto attack. So you need to be able to make that call. And your team really need to follow up on that if they've not made the decision themselves. Look, I'm just going to assume that the best case scenario that you have is that you're playing Malphite. Very few champions in the game are better at initiating a team fight than Malphite. You see a couple of people out of position, you ult in, and you knock them all up, and it makes an epic-sounding noise, and that's very important. Because everyone hears that. No, I'm serious. Like, if you hear noise in your solo queue, you go, oh, it's fight time, go, and you see that their Orianna has been knocked 3 feet in the air, and they're going to not be able to cast the ball on you for a few seconds. That's your time to kill. But the reverse is also true. If you're going against a Malphite, you want to be able to stay behind, and you may need to target that Malphite, despite the fact that he's 8-0 and 15 or something like that, and he's ridiculously tanky. If you're the marksman in this scenario, and you can get that, you can get him a quarter of his health missing without putting yourself or your teammates in danger, then you can do that. It really depends on the fight. If we'd gotten like a screenshot or something with this question, it'd be, oh well, put it up on the stream. This is where you would go, and this is the person you'd target. There's some amazing videos that are played in the middle of the OGN games, for the majority of them. If you before and after the actual series are finished, they actually go through individual team fights. Like Twitch move to this particular spot, like they'll slow it down, they'll pause it and say, okay, so Aatrox has hit 3 people here. Twitch is hitting spray and pray across the entire team. Like, it's all ridiculously complex team fight situations. If the enemy Karthus is out of position and not standing on top of your team, kill him. But if he's standing on top of your team, use a knockback. That's what are your thoughts, Carrot? Because
I mean, I think it really comes down to different things for different people. So I mean, the main thing is, so in normals and in low bronze, essentially everybody says, oh, go for the carries. But the reality is, if you are a carry, you can't reach the other carries. It's very rare. So the most important thing for your sort of basically your tanky bruiser type characters, they are to go for the other carries. If you are a carry, it's to attack whoever's in front of you. So, because basically they're the threat. Like, they're the whole point of the tanks and the bruisers is to chase down the enemy and to take them down. And that's why they have to be tanky. That's why they've got so many stats.
Should clarify. When you say carry,
So
we're not talking
marksman.
about just the marksman. If you're a mid player and the enemy tank is walking forward, and you're a LeBlanc, like let's
Yep.
just say like you're Syndra, you're LeBlanc, you're a burst champion who once they uses their cooldowns, they're pretty much useless in a team fight. You do not target the tank in those situations. The marksman is free to because that auto attack comes up every second, and they're free to. If you're a Karthus or something like that, yeah, sure, lay wastes are fine.
Yep.
If you're a Vigar, definitely not. If
Yep.
you're someone like Diana, like, we should probably break down team fights a little bit more clearly.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Like, generically speaking, no, you go. You sound
oh,
like...
sorry. So I mean, yeah. I mean, marksman is generally always going to attack the person in front of them, which would be the tank. Yeah, as you said, mids don't really want to blow their best abilities on a tank, especially their ultimates, unless for example, they've got an ability that is designed to do that. Like, I mean, I guess someone like a Trundle, he would use his ultimates on the enemy tank because that's how it works. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
That's
generally
a very
speaking,
specific example, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, generally speaking, you're going to have either some sort of AP carry or maybe even an AD carry, sort of mid or top, with one of the other being a tanky sort of champion, and then you've got your marksman. So when I say carries, I mean those champions. So I guess theoretically you might have a Yi jungle and everybody else is tanky, but so you're always going to have a marksman, almost always probably, and then a carry in one of the other positions. So yeah, so I mean that's basically the main thing for a carry is to survive. I guess you have got assassins, and that really comes down to timing because there's
And
no point
and
jumping
positioning.
into the back line if you get blown up as soon as you arrive.
Yeah.
If
That's actually what I was going to say before. Is there's a front line, there's a mid line, and there's the back line. Your tanky champions, Malphite, Alistar,
Yep.
They're the champions that are out the front,
Yep.
blocking Nidalee spears, trying to engage on the enemy team. They're your front line. Then you've got champions that are midline champions, which can be like Diana. They can be I kind of want to say Vigar, and I kind of don't, because his stun is really useful from that position. But also, there's a few different champions that fit into the midline, and then you've got the backline champions. We're talking Xerath, we're talking Caitlyn, we're talking Tristana, we're talking anyone who, if they get hit by a Malphite ult, they're dead.
Yep.
And whose damage or their presence, not even their damage, because it could be someone like Zillion or whatever, their presence in the team fight, being removed can cost a game or a fight or whatever. They should be as far away from the enemy team as possible without removing them from the fight. You still want to be able to auto attack,
Yeah.
but you don't want to get Alistair comboed or Malphite ulted or whatever.
And that's why peel in particular is so important for a support. Or for somebody in the team. I mean, I guess a Maokai, he can peel as well. Is that it means because I mean, a win for a top laner, like a tanky sort of champion, a bruiser, is to push the AD carry or the marksman or the mid laner like totally out of the fight, where he's completely that's a win. Because then your own marksman can go and do some good work. So I mean, that's something. That's why peel is so important. In a team, because without that peel, if you can't stop that top laner from bearing down on your carry, or to pull them away, because I mean, there's some champions, like you said, with Malphite. Malphite dives in, like you cannot stop him from getting to your backline, but you can stop him once he gets there from causing any more damage.
Well, it's not that you can't stop him from getting to your backline. It just means that your backline needs to be further back for that security. Like a lot of the answer to this question, who do we focus, the AD or the mid laner? Like that really does come down to positioning. Like Corki is not a backline champion. He's a midline champion. He's got to be in range to throw out his phosphorus bombs and get the armor stacking down there. But he is a marksman, so he's also very mobile. So if you try and Malphite ult on him, he may live. So he's at less risk than an Ashe or a Caitlyn. So it's not as simple as just marksman, mid laner. Like those are not the choices. Like Swain is another good example, or Galio. These are mid lane champions that are tanky as hell. Like you could put them in the front line. I mean, maybe not Swain early game, but once he's got his Rod of Ages kind of stacked up, he wants to be in the front line because he wants to be able to go ult Zhonya's, and just nuke the enemy team. Karthus can be a frontline champion if he's ahead, so it's not a universal answer, but if I was going to go with a universal answer, if you can do it safely, the AD carry.
Yep.
There's no point in killing the AD carry if you're killed as well, and then it's a 4v4, and your enemy team might have a positioning advantage. So it must be made on a call-by-call basis. If you want to get practice at this kind of stuff, I'd actually recommend playing ARAM, because ARAM is a very good kind of team fight mid-game simulator. Just to get the idea of who's a priority target, where you can stand and not be initiated on, if that's where you think you need practice.
Yeah, I mean, it's ARAM. I sort of feel is of limited value because it's kind of just constant skirmishing rather than okay, we're going to team fight. And I guess something that came up in a game we played the other day, and something that I had a discussion with Dieselfire, one of our listeners on Razorcoms, is kind of about
Shout out to Diesel.
Shout out to him. Is about timing and when you should team fight and when you should just hold. So particularly in the rank 5 situation is, he was with some people. He went to ward. He was a support, and while he was away, they had a 4v4 fight which they lost, and therefore they lost the game. So in that sort of situation, it's there's timing. You can say, well, the benefit of someone has Rift, or I guess Twisted Treeline less so, but is you can say, okay, we're going to hold back. We're just going to hold mid. We're not going to engage. We're just going to keep them back. And then when our the team we gather together as 5, then we'll fight. Or you got things like that. Split pushing is another good example of when do you team fight. Sieging, all that sort of stuff. Where ARAM just tends to be constant aggression, constant skirmishing, constant, which I don't think is quite the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, I think if you really want to get more experience in team fighting, get in ranked 5s or get in normals with 5s.
I
where you're
recommend
on
everyone
comms.
get into ranked 5s. Not only is it the best way to play League of Legends, in my opinion, but it's also the most fun. Get get your friends in there on TeamSpeak, assuming you're all of a similar understanding of the game. Like if you've got a guy who just hit 30 and a guy who's played 2,000 games, or he's got 2,000 wins or something like that, there might be some conflict or whatever. But just get in there, play ranked 5s, and develop these skills, because that's definitely the best place to do it. A lot of these opportunities can be lost in solo queue because people don't group, or people don't pick. They pick champions that they can solo carry on, and not necessarily are built for team fights and such. So.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I mean, rank 5 is the way to play. Just with just so we could bring up so picking team comps around Peel and straight. I mean, that's something we've sort of touched on. Maybe we want to sort of go into that a bit more. So, I mean, my view is I'm just trying to think of how to phrase this. How should people think about that side of things of picking comps around who to engage and who to not engage with? I mean, actually, I'll bring up a game. So I was playing a game the other day, which you was spectating. It was a ranked game, I think it was, where I was Morgana. We had Zed. Who else did we have? I was Morgana support. And we had, I think, Tristana. We had a few. Basically, it was all relatively squishy.
Yeah, you had a very fed Tristana, which was good.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
The enemy team also had a very fed Katarina. I'm guessing that's where the question is going.
Yeah, that's it. So, I mean, let's think about... I'm going to actually bring up the game since I've actually got the thing on.
Yeah, you've got an advanced match history. Bring it up.
Yeah.
From what I can remember of the game, because I've watched a lot of games since then.
Yeah.
But...
all right, so the team comp was...
Okay, you list them off.
Yep. So... Oh, come on, match history. Hurry up.
Wait till it's loaded.
Yeah, okay. So we had Zed, Kha'Zix, Akali, I was Morgana, and we had Tristana. They had Zinzao, Lucian, Malphite, Katarina, Blitzcrank. The Malphite was also AP Malphite with like DFG and Rabadons and Void Staff and Zhonya's. So
that's so weird.
And Katarina ended up being 31-10-8, which gives you an idea of how fed she was.
Now, actually, can you link me that? I'll have a look at the same team compositions, but something that's glaringly obvious is that there is very little way of dealing with a Katarina ult.
Yeah.
Like, if Katarina comes in and ults, no one can stop it, and she's just tearing your entire team up.
Except with Exhaust, which I had, but that's only up every, like, second or third fight. Like, it's,
and Katarina's ults get reset when she gets kills and stuff like that. Yep. So, yeah, like, if you look at Tristana, she's got her knockback. She needed to save her knockback for the Katarina. That was really the only chance you had. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the binding doesn't stop it. The
No,
stun does on your ultimate, but that
that's
takes
too
like,
slow.
yeah, exactly. That you have to wait for the tether to land. She needs to be in the right position when it starts, when she's ulting, and like she needs to mess up seriously for you to be the person to stop this. Zed can't stop it. Kha'Zix can't stop it. Akali can't stop it. And very, very limitedly, Morgana can stop it. Tristana was the only person in that entire team who could stop it. And if she's not in the correct position, or Katarina gets a better position on the team, she could tear Zed, Kha'Zix, Akali just down to shreds. Like, part of the problem is that you guys didn't have any frontline champions.
Yep. Yep.
At all. It's like Akali wants to jump in, Kha'Zix wants to jump in, Zed wants to jump in. None of them want to be at the front.
Yep.
The only
That's it.
person who wants to be at the front, ironically, is the support.
Yep.
Carrot Colossus on Morgana. Because he wants to walk into the enemy team with his R running, and then Zhonya's. That was the team comp. It was because the rest of the team that you were against were just not great. Like, you could have, as long as Tristana survived and Katarina died, you would have won that game.
Yep.
But
And I think that's the end of what happening as well. So, I mean, it's just an interesting thing where essentially the whole team is diving into you, except Blitzcrank. He's probably the only person who's actually moving towards you. Less so Lucian. But Xin Zhao, Malphite, Harry, all diving on you. But we didn't have any peel. Or had very little peel, and everybody in our team wanted to get in their face as well, except Tristana. So it's one of those things where, I guess in this case, and we've kind of moved on to peeling and stuff like that, but you don't actually have to, unlike normal, they didn't actually have any tanks. The Blitzcrank was pretty tanky, but nobody else was really that tanky. Everybody's jumping at you, so you can go for the mid. The problem is the mid is so crazily fed, it's very hard to deal with. So it's one of those things where, well, like you said, it depends on the game. So, and in our case, what we focused on, because we kept losing team fights, we focused a lot on taking dragons and barons, and in the end, we had about it was like a 17,000, it was 17.7k lead at the end of the game. So, and we led through most of the game because we just kept taking dragons, kept taking towers. So it's I guess that's an example of where you can manage your strategy around what they're doing. So Katarina dives in, exhaust her, she's going to get resets and stuff. So yeah, you just sort of got to try and manage it where you see it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we've probably covered that. So let's move on. We got our second question. What was it?
You're
I'm
gonna
getting
look at
distracted.
this question and you're gonna go, how am I gonna word this? Because Victor has a certain obsession with presentation.
Yeah.
Shall we say?
No, sorry. Somebody just tweeted it at the Twitter. Anyway, so Victor, I'll have to do the first line because it's good. Hello, my name is Victor, and welcome to Super Discussion Time with Victor. He says, during our games, a lot of overconfident players let their pride get the better of them for one reason or another. By this, I mean people who are unable to respect the matchup, power spikes, points of strength, and gold difference, and then die because of it, get angry, go back, and make the exact same mistakes. So I guess the question, how do you deal with that? I mean, I guess there's two questions. How do you deal with it yourself? And maybe we'll deal with that second. And how do you deal with it with others? So yes. So how do you think? How about I'll start, because I'm usually the guy who talks about team dynamics. So the first thing you need to do is not get frustrated yourself. People are going to do stupid things. You can't help that. It's especially in solo queue, you just paired up with whoever randoms you were paired up with, and that's just life. So the first thing is you don't go and tilt yourself. You maintain your cool, you maintain your focus, and work around the fact that this person's being crazy. How about you give a point? We'll take turns to adding points of how to deal with it.
Well, if you've got someone who doesn't understand, because these aren't basic League of Legends points. These are, I would say, intermediate to advanced. Like, power spikes has really only recently been talked about. Like, it's always been a thing, but it's only really come to light really since Monte Cristo started pointing it out. Like, if a Tristana, she power spikes at level 2, she power spikes at level 6. and then she lulls down. But once gets her Infinity Edge, she power spikes again. So that's not necessarily common knowledge. Most people out there don't know all the matchups. They don't know what this new champion Na does. Oh wow, this cute little thing. Oh my god, it turned into a big thing. I'm dead. Like respecting the matchup is a lot harder than you think, because some people out there are of the opinion that Braum is countered by Nami, and other people are of the idea that Nami is countered by Braum, because even though Nami has a much better time in lane against Braum, Braum is able to completely stop her ultimate from hitting the entire team. So knowing the matchups is not necessarily everything. And it can be like AP Tristana to AD Tristana. Like, there's a lot of things that really need to be considered when we're talking about this kind of stuff. Gold difference is a much easier one, because we talk about this on Battle Arena all the time. If you've died twice in lane, and you, basically, if you go to lane and you get 1v1'd, no outside jungle pressure, you're a top laner or a mid laner, and you get 1v1'd, it's because you didn't understand the power spike, you didn't understand the matchup, you didn't understand the points of strength, or, the goal difference doesn't really come into it at that point. But say you're Twisted Fate versus a Diana. You're like, oh, okay, I haven't fought Diana before. Let's see how this goes. All of a sudden, she hits level 3, and she sucks you in, has a shield up. You take a ton of damage from her auto attacks, and you're like, oh my goodness, how do I get out of here? And you die. All of a sudden, Diana pushes the wave up to the tower. You lose an entire minion wave worth of experience, an entire minion wave worth of gold, and she comes back with 2 Doran's rings, or a bit more cooldown reduction, and you come back with just a singular Doran's ring.
Yep.
You are now behind in gold, and you were behind in experience. So just on base stats alone, without taking in the gold, she's going to beat you one-on-one, unless, of course, you're someone who has a power spike at level 5 or 6. And you need to know that in order to take advantage of it, because if you don't, if you just go back into lane going, oh, it's all right, she killed me once, but she won't get me another time, and you make that same mistake again, it means that you're not respecting that matchup. You're not taking into account the details of the situation that you're actually in, and if you don't realize why, then you're just gonna get angry at yourself. You're just gonna go, oh my god, I suck. I should be able to kill Diana.
The perfect example is in the bottom lane is you see, 2 people go back, one person's got 1 kill, or to me 2 kills, and then the other person, and one person comes back with a BF sword, the other one comes back with, it used to be Vamp Scepter, and that was the perfect example where you see people who are going in hard against somebody with a BF sword when they've got a Vamp Scepter, and you're like, do not do that. That is craziness. You are going to get beaten.
So you're going to have an extra 12 health at the end of this fight, but you're going to take an extra 130 damage.
Yeah, that's it.
You're not even close to the same power scale at the moment.
That's it. And just to go back to the respecting the matchup, it also respecting the matchups in different ways. So, especially now with how they've gone with their champion design, they're really trying to have, windows of strength, and windows of weakness. So, for example, Braum, obviously very strong when he shields up. Very strong when he's trying to stun you, but aside from that, once the shield's down, he's actually relatively squishy. He doesn't, he has got bonus, but once his abilities are down, he's actually not much use at all. When Morgana misses her snare, she's not very good at all. Blitzcrank's the perfect example. Once he misses his hook, feel free to go to town on him.
Once hits his hook, you're dead.
Yeah, that's it. So
it's very binary. Blitzcrank.
Yeah, and Syndrome middle. She doesn't land her snare. That's a good time to go in. So that you got to look for those. Not only the matchups that have. The windows of opportunity you have. Someone like a Renekton, though, he's pretty strong all the time. His ability is on such a low cooldown. He's got mobility. He's naturally tanky. He naturally does a lot of damage. So, he's someone that, you want to try and go in and harass and do damage when he's used his, his cold or weak or whatever. But he's still going to be pretty strong if he's ahead. Mundo's another one. His cooldowns are so low. If he's ahead, he's ahead. And there's not much you're going to do to really bully him out of it. Maokai's another one.
He pleases.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, I mean that's yeah, and of course the main thing above all that is don't, and this is something that Adam on the Trinity Force podcast talks about a lot. Like he goes into every match thinking he's gonna destroy the other person, even when it gets him behind. He still thinks he's a better player, and I think more than anything, and I guess this is starting to go into our own mentality. You know, you cannot assume you're a better player. You know, you may think you're crash hot, but there's always people who are better than you. Even someone like Rady, who's top of Challenger, like on some days, there are people who are better than him. So you can't, the number one thing in terms of thinking for yourself is not being overconfident is, I am not God. I'm not going to win every fight. I'm not going to be good in every match. I need to respect the other person and assume that they're going to play smart and not just go crazy and go ham to try and catch up. Because
Erect Gymnast said it a few weeks ago when he was on the show, that it doesn't matter how skilled the other person that he's fighting is, he's still restricted by the limits of that champion.
Yep.
And that's a very big deal, because you can be the absolute best poppy in the world, but if you try and fight when you've got an item disadvantage, a level disadvantage, and it's a 2v1 situation, you're gonna die. Right. That's a very good way to put it. That actually reminds me, it's not in the document, but I kind of want to just touch on a little bit. People who come up with their own kind of build paths, like in items, like it's talking about a gold difference as part of Victor's question, and we touched a huge amount about it on gold efficiency a few weeks ago, so I don't want to go over it too much. But if you're buying items that are less useful than the items your opponent is getting, even if you've got a gold difference, you're at the disadvantage. So if you got a 15k gold to their 10k gold, if you waste 5k gold, you're in the exact same situation. So and other people out there are going to be able to capitalize on your mistakes.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're in lane and you're, just to go with bot lanes, there's some familiarity, you've got a Bilgewater Cutlass and they've got a recurve bow because they're building towards Runen for some insane reason, and you're building towards Bork. Like, that's a pretty good opportunity to just go and slap the crap out of them in lane. Like, use that opportunity.
Yeah, well, we actually had that on Battle Arena this week. Who was it? Shakazy had built a Runen's Hurricane on Gnar in the top lane, and I was fairly critical of it on the night. And it's like, you do realize that when you turn into Mega Gnar, that item turns off. Like, you no longer get the double attack. So not only is that a gold inefficient item, but your champion...
It's a useless gold inefficient item.
Yeah, exactly. Your champion utilizes it very poorly. So it's not like Kayle, where she can take a gold inefficient item and make it amazing with her kit. It was like, okay, so you get AoE percentile damage, but then you turn into Mega Gnar and that item becomes useless, I suppose it's still got attack speed and you get the 3 auto attacks, but... Yeah, like, spending your gold properly can give you a power spike instead of sacrificing one to the enemy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That comes down to the matchups as well.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's in some ways it's almost identical to the point about the BF sword versus the Vamp Scepter. If you say again.
Very much so. I was just
yeah. So if you've got the BF sword and they've got the useless item, whatever it is, just go ham, go hard on them, like punish them for their mistake. And if you're, I guess for your own understanding, just don't make those mistakes in the first place. Like, don't pick those items.
Well, that's actually a very. I think we could probably have that as the moral of the story. Is when you die, understand why you died.
Yep.
That's probably the best answer to this, because if you died in lane due to a poor matchup, you need to understand that matchup. Like, I've laned Tryndamere into a Teemo before, and I don't think there's a worse laning matchup you could possibly have. But I knew I was stuffed as Tryndamere.
Yep.
So and you might not be able to do this in solo queue, but I had a good teammate on TeamSpeak. I followed my jungler around and helped him jungle for the first few levels so that I could get enough experience and get enough base stats so that I could last hit under tower more effectively, get some rage start up, and just try and stay the hell away from him. He could tower dive me. He killed me twice in lane, dying twice in lane as Tryndamere versus Teemo, not nearly as bad as it could have been.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess like, a point that Victor makes in his email, he says, they're making the exact same mistakes. Like, probably one of the best things overall is not to make the same mistake twice. Like, if you recognize that that's a problem, like, don't go back and do it again. Like, that's just stupid. So I guess that feeds into what you're saying. Like, analyze why you died. Maybe it's you're overextending. Maybe it's maybe they actually have got ahead. Maybe their CS is higher, and so even though you've got 2 kills, they've got 30 or 40 CS on you.
And it's important. It's important to remember that it's your fault.
Yeah,
it's not anybody on your teams. It's not because this champion is overpowered. Yep. It's you've put yourself into a situation where you've died. If it's because the enemy, because your team didn't come mid to take that obvious advantage and push while there was only one person able to defend, you still went to that tower. That's still your fault for being in that position. If your team wasn't willing to press the advantage, that's your team's fault for not pressing the advantage, but it's still your fault that you died. So you can change your behavior from game to game. This doesn't even have to, this doesn't have to be an overarching thing over all your games. It's not like, okay, don't go forward because they'll kill me. Because sometimes your team will go to that tower. It all depends on the situation that you're in.
Absolutely. All right, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else we could make about that point. I mean, I guess
talk about it for ages, but I think we've covered the basics for it.
Yeah. Probably the only other thing I'd add is just also think about your team. So to go back to the example of the game which I was talking about with the Fed Katarina. So obviously, in that team situation, if we're just charging in all 5 versus an AP Malphite who's going to just destroy the hell out of us when he ults, and Katarina, well, that's you make that mistake once, you don't want to make it again. So you don't want to think, well, we're ahead, we've got these barons, we've got these dragons, we've got these towers, we're so far ahead we can just dive into a team fight. Well, no, you want to you got to respect your opponent. We've got a Katarina that's fed out of her mind. We've got a Malphite who's AP, which is always dangerous. So you got to think, well, how do we then play? So we want to try and, in our case, it was, I land a binding, and then we just pounce on that one person because we got a Zed, we got a Nakali, we got a Kha'Zix. Bam. Single target damage, insane. If the Malphite comes out of position, and I think in the end, that's what happened. The Malphite tried to ult us. He kind of whiffed his ult a little bit, and he kind of missed all of us. We just pounced on him, destroyed him, and then we just 5v4s snowballed the game to the win. So you also got to think as a team, don't get too cocky. Don't think, well, just because we're ahead, we can do anything we want. You need to respect your opponent's power. You need to understand your own abilities and not try and push an advantage you don't actually have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
I agree.
Cool. All right. Well, let's...
Actually, there's one more thing in this we should really address that Victor's brought up. Apparently, he really loves Ralph's new haircut. So.
Yeah. He also said much love. So, and he's demanding in chat. And because I'm a good guy, I'm going to mention that. He says, much love, Victor Bradley of the Half Hours Victor Show, starring Victor, the smashing podcast about Victor and all things Victor. That's right, Victor. In fact, what I should do, because he's always bugging me for an interview, maybe I should interview him on his own podcast.
Possibly.
So maybe I should do that.
Well, then technically, isn't he interviewing you?
Well, no. He wants me to interview him after Battle Arena, so maybe I should interview him for Battle Arena on his own podcast.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah. All right. There we go. Okay. We'll get some questions from the chat. So, of course, don't forget, if you're listening to the podcast, you can join us. Normally, it's from 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on Monday. This time, we started a bit early. We started half an hour early. But if you follow us on Twitter or Facebook, you'll get the reminders. But we always want your questions. We got some from chat. Matt Pack was first, and he says, "What do you guys think of Kha'Zix?" You want to go first? You want to talk about from in a pro scene kind of perspective?
In a pro scene, he's probably one of the strongest junglers out there at the moment.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. He's if you've been watching any of the games that were played on the weekend for the Challenger Series, he was picked up quite a lot. He's up there with Lee Sin. He's up there with Elise. He's up there with Evelyn. Very, very high priority pick at the moment.
Why's that?
Oh, he's just because the other junglers have just been kind of scaled back a little bit, and Kha'Zix was just a little bit behind, and always a kind of sometimes pick You know, like, why would you ever pick a Lee Sin, or why would you pick Kha'Zix when you've got Lee Sin? Well, they've nerfed Lee Sin a little bit, so Kha'Zix is now another option. So if they ban Lee Sin, or if your team composition does better with a burst assassin rather than a mobility initiator, then that's actually an option, and that's something I really do like about the way that the patches have been coming in recently. Is that they seem to be knocking down tiny bits of the champions that are currently overpowered. Like, Kassadin has been chiseled away at for months now, and he's finally at a place where he's still pickable, but he's not must-pick ban. And he's not trash. You can still pick Kassadin and still do amazingly well in the right circumstances. And Kha'Zix is very much in that same spot, I feel.
Yep.
I'd actually put him as a higher priority than Kassadin. I mean, that point can be argued backwards and forwards, and we'll leave that up to history to decide. But I think he's an amazing jungler right now. I really do like ball carriers for Orianna are always welcome. And Kha'Zix one of the best in the business at doing that. You know, he's not the best, but he's got the burst required to get those resets, and he can carry that ball in and throughout that entire team fight. So that's my opinion of Kha'Zix. I would not take him anywhere else but the jungle. Some people have been playing, like, very, very rarely been playing in mid lane. I don't think that's where he belongs. I think he benefits too much from the jungle item and the element of surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've never seen anybody do as much damage as you've seen when Kha'Zix isolates a target and uses his evolved Q and something like that. There's so much damage in there. It's like 224% AD ratio, which is just crazy. So
Rengar can compete. We'll give
okay,
Rengar.
Fair enough. We'll give Rengar compete.
Also fits that description. He's an excellent jungler who's great at ball carrying and who can do a high amount of burst damage. So
yeah. I guess maybe it's one of those things, like, it was a bit like Gragas, like when Gragas was, when he was nerfed from his AP sniper kind of role. People were like, oh, Gragas is dead, but then they realized, hang on, Gragas in the top lane is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I suspect it. Yeah,
I'm still claiming Calder for that one.
Yep. I called that too. You and me both.
You called him sleeper OP, and I said I think he's being designed now as a top laner.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah.
And we both called it.
That's right.
So yeah, I mean, he's just got to be played differently, and people need to get used to that. And I guess what you said about the changes to the other junglers. So we had somebody had a question actually in the chat. So following on from that, is what about Vi? Is Vi back in the highest level?
Well, yes and no. I'd still prefer Kha'Zix or Rengar. Actually, before we get on the Vi thing, I just want to say it's awesome that Rengar and Kha'Zix are both considered viable at the same time, because we might actually see the stacks, like the storyline, massive come out. I really want to see that stuff in a pro game.
That'd be so good.
Yeah. Vi is, I'd say, slightly below them, but still really good in certain team compositions. I think she's especially amazing with the Yasuo. Like, just the amount of just knock up and knock back utility that she brings to the team is amazing. She still kind of suffers from the lack of damage because because Vi was changed a while ago. Like, rather than the chip away that most characters got in the last few months, is she got reworked. She got a lot more attack damage scaling, and she had her base damage reduced, which means you could not build her tanky and still do damage, which is perfectly justified. But when you're looking at it, she cannot get out of a team fight. She can't go stealth like Kha'Zix. She can't repel like Elise. She can't ward jump like Lee Sin. She's all in, very similar to Leona. So you have to build her tanky. But her usefulness is entirely dependent on champions on your team. Like, in solo queue, that's a different story. You can just build her attack damage and just hyper carry games. But professionally speaking, you wouldn't be picking Vi over one of the more viable options.
Fair enough. Cool. All right. Okay.
That's some esports related questions.
Yeah, we got some esports. Yeah. So, Josh asked about Azir. We haven't played him. I mean, he looks kind of cool, but I mean, I haven't played him I got a PBE account, but I haven't bothered because apparently he's terrible on high ping, and PBE's
But
only
that's what the
an
PB
NA.
is, yeah.
So we'll have to come back to that when he actually comes out. I mean, patch 4.16 will be out soon enough as it is anyway, so we'll get a chance to see him then. We do have a question from Modbright again in the chat. What is our position on region locking? This is referring to the new policy where each from now on in NA and EU LCS, there'll have to be a minimum of 3 people on each team from that region, like resident to that region. So, NA teams can't, you couldn't import a whole team from Korea anymore. You have to have 3 people who's resident to that region. I'm personally. We should also say that current teams have got an exemption. So I think TSM probably would be affected by this.
Yeah, LMQ definitely.
LMQ for sure. Not so much EG anymore. It used to be.
Their residents there now? What?
Well, no, they've swapped out. They got rid of 2 of their players. Oh, actually, having said that, haven't they got a Korean jungler? A Korean jungler, Crepo, and then... Anyway...
the point still stands. If you consider the teams in general and the reasons for coming, it's like LMQ and EG both came to America because they thought the competition would be easier. That's pretty much it. They thought that the chances of getting into Worlds were more likely in the North American region than they would be back in their home countries. Well,
LMQ are definitely proven right on that one. Since they're going. I think... I'm kind of six in one hand and half a dozen in the other. Like, I kind of see why they did it. I think the downside is you really want as much cross-pollination of talent as possible. So having people freely be able to come from overseas will help with boosting that talent pool in North America. And I just kind of think... That's probably gonna. I think that might in the long term actually hurt the scene more than help it, rather than allowing. It just means you'll have an overall lower caliber of people.
Yeah, like at the moment, it's been this way for years. Is that people have been saying that the Asian regions or Korea, more specifically in recent times, that they're just gonna completely dumpster the North American scene, the European scene. Brazil, whatever, they're going to come out here and smash it. As we've had teams like LMQ and EG, and we've had Koreans come over and come to Australia and join our teams and all that sort of stuff. I think it's an unnecessary restriction, but I think at the same time, it's been put in place so that we don't get a complete flood of people moving from country to country where they think the competition is less. Like, I don't like it because it puts a lot more implications on things outside Riot Games' control. Like, residency has a lot to do with the country that you're moving to or that you're moving from. Like, trying to get residency in North America is just crazy difficult unless you're going through Canada.
That's it. Yeah, I guess so.
If you're part of the European Union, through whatever, the Commonwealth or anything, then you can get through that a lot easier. If you're Korea going anywhere else, like I didn't even know what's involved with that. Like, there's so many things about that. Like, we do not need more things to worry about. Like, and in terms of competition, I agree with you completely that the more kind of interconnection that we've got between different regions, the more that players and metas and teams and such are going to develop. Like LMQ have brought the Chinese Zerg mentality to North America, where if you can't out team fight us, we're going to win the game. But they've also developed, like LMQ have developed a ton from being in North America. They realize now, hang on, we need to ward. We're dropping games because we're not warding. And LMQ developed because of that. And a lot of the North American teams were like, we need to get better at team fighting, or we're going to lose to LMQ. So just the introduction of LMQ right there has put so much more improvement in the North American scene. The same really can't be said of EG. They've underperformed.
Well, and mind you, I mean, that's part, like, they were underperforming in Europe before they split up anyway. So it's not like EG
Yeah.
were like a top quality team before they moved half their team to North America. Like they're already struggling.
They've had their moments in the sun.
They have. Well, yeah, season 2 obviously, but
Exactly.
season 3 was not kind to them, and well, we found out which half of the team was the better half. So, yeah, I mean,
Stop talking about NA stuff for too much longer because we're going to lose our listeners. We got this Oceanic podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose most of us.
I mean, we could do with the same thing in Oceania. Like, I mean, really, if we wanted to really boost our competitiveness as a scene, getting players here. I mean, getting teams and players to come play here would be best. Alternatively, having more opportunities for Oceanic teams to go to Southeast Asia and play against people there. Or, heck, even what Ejim and the guys at Legacy was saying when they were over in Europe, like they were able to go and play against other teams, and they found it interesting. It helped them figure out where they were in relation to other teams. So
yeah,
I mean, Oceanic needs it just as much as any other scene.
But I read a tweet of Monte Cristo's that I need to acknowledge because he did raise a very good point. Is that by region locking people or players of teams, it keeps the local fans more invested in the teams themselves through a kind of spirit of patriotism. Like, oh yeah, this is an Aussie team, I'm going to go for it. But you can imagine like North America being less enthusiastic about supporting LMQ because a lot of them see them as not really the American team or something like that.
I mean, okay, sort of.
Yeah, it has validity to it. I thought
it's not completely without merit.
It's not my personal it's not my personal opinion, but it is something worth considering.
Absolutely. I mean, it's that's an element, I guess. But I mean, really, I mean, the perfect example of parochialness in Australian sporting culture is the AFL. So if AFL culture, one of the states, Victoria, everybody hates Victoria. Victorians love to hate everybody else. And
I'm up in Darwin. I'm completely out of touch with who hates who.
Okay, well, anyway, I mean, the teams freely draft from other states. Like, there's no problem with that. And in fact, people sort of happily adopt people from other. I mean, that's true of any sport. Where there's sort of regional franchises or local franchises. People are always happy to have players from other places who are good. I mean, LMQ are new, but if they were to stay around long enough and learn English and sort of integrate into the scene, I think they would be embraced as
absolutely.
Americans, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, no, I sent out a tweet when I first read the news. Was Riot Games officially? What was my tweet? I'm trying to remember it verbatim, but I don't think I'm going to. Basically, the spirit of the tweet was that Riot Games is against the American dream, which is I want to immigrate to America and do what I do best and live the American dream. Like, it's like no region locking. Unless 3 of your 5 family members already here in the first place. No. No American dream for you.
Yep. All right, well, I think we've probably covered that one. I think that probably does us for this week. Did you have any shout-outs before you finished up?
Shout-outs to everyone on Team Immunity because the DDoSing was not very kind to us, so I really feel for everyone on the team. But also a shout-out to YSSC. They really did they played very well, especially Serb. I just want to say shout out to Serb be carrying from YSSC.
And I want to give a shout out to everybody in the Twitch chat for watching us, even though I think the internet has not been kind to me. Unfortunately, WA is in a massive storm at the moment, so I think that's making things very unpleasant for the internets. So thanks for joining us. Of course, what would OzLoL be without internet issues?
Well, actually, I do a shout out to everybody who wished me a happy birthday. Because I didn't mention it, but today is my birthday. Thank you to everyone. I've been getting a lot of tweets and messages on Skype and Facebook and everything. So, thank you. Make me feel really special.
All right. And of course, if you want to get in touch with the show, as I said before, you can email us ozlolpodcast@gmail.com. We are twitch.com, sorry, not twitch.com, twitter.com/OzLoLpodcast and facebook.com/OzLoLpodcast. So you can catch up with us on then. I am at Carrot Colossus. That's with one L and three S's. In case you don't know how to spell
How you
Colossus.
spell Colossus, yeah. Google it.
Yeah, that's it. Use a dictionary. Cleric is at Stephen Garstone, Stephen with a V. And then there's at Vesp QT _ lol, which is Ralph, who is, as we said before, in Italy. So thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next week. And make sure you check out, I forgot to mention, Battle Arena this Thursday, of course. From
That's so much fun. You should definitely come along.
6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on this channel, twitch.tv/T4Podcast. We're going to be back again next week.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.